And the Oscar goes to Tilda Swinton.
Tilda Swinton has always seemed to come from another world. People called her an alien, a witch, even scandalous. After all, this is a woman who once spent 6 hours napping in a glass box in the middle of MoMA as a live art exhibit, and she famously maintained a bohemian household with not one, but 2 lovers, a setup so unconventional it left tabloids reeling. Yet this same eccentric free spirit has become the high priestess of cool in modern cinema, a muse to top directors and a fashion icon. Tilda Swinton became an icon by never playing it safe. She turned her otherworldliness and odd passions into a personal brand of art. She ignored Hollywood's rules. One day appeared as a centuries-old vampire for a Jim Jarmusch film. The next won an Oscar in couture on red carpet, and proved that being entirely weird can be the coolest form of beauty. In short, her secret is being exactly who she is and making the world adjust to her. But if you'd like a bit more of an explanation, follow me. Welcome. I'm Kira, and this is your beauty blueprint. I have spent this week researching, watching, and absorbing all things Tilda Swinton to bring you her very essence and share the best of my findings. So, what are the ingredients of Tilda Swinton's instantly recognizable persona? It's not just the androgynous bone structure or the way she wears white hair and nearly invisible eyebrows, though those certainly do help. It's the fearlessness, playful yet poised, arty yet oddly sultry, that makes her one of a kind. Swinton has crafted a persona that's part aristocrat, part alien, part punk rock mystic. And how did she do it? Well, stick around, because by the end of this video I'll serve up a quick breakdown of what we can learn, very practically speaking, from Tilda Swinton's unique style universe. So settle in, grab a drink, perhaps something 200-year-old like a single malt whiskey, if you're feeling immortal like one of her vampires, or just a cup of strong Scottish tea and cake. And let's start from the very beginning. Who really is Tilda Swinton, and how did she come to be the face of the coolest of modern cinema? Here's a little backstory. Oh, but just before I jump into it, if you're enjoying this so far, please do tap the like button and subscribe. It really helps this little channel. And let me know in the comments your favorite Tilda Swinton role. I'm curious if anyone else is obsessed with only lovers left alive as much as I am. It's coming up soon, I promise. Alright. Tilda Swinton was born Catherine Matilda Swinton in 1960 to an aristocratic Scottish family, the kind that can trace its lineage back centuries. She actually went to school in London alongside a young Lady Diana Spencer. Yes, that Princess Diana. Though Tilda's own youth was less fairy tale and more rebellion. She felt like an oddball early on. By the way, she is a Scorpio, and her moon sign is allegedly Gemini.
Are you into astrology? Please say yes, please say yes, please say... Oh, me neither.
I'm ignorant.
You're ignorant?
Pass. Yeah,
It's
I don't
okay.
know. All I know is that my twins were supposed to be born 2 months before they were. And if they had been, they would have been one thing. What are you supposed to be counting? When you're due or when you're actually born? I mean, it's not an exact science, let's face it. Is that transgressive to say that?
No,
Because
it's
I
not
know for some
transgressive.
people it's the world.
No, I'm so jealous of you because you get to discover astrology.
Thank you.
Yes,
Well
yes,
done.
yes. That's
You
why they pay
nailed
me
that.
the
That's
medium
really
bucks.
good. Okay.
By her late teens, she was studying literature at Cambridge. But, of course, academia wasn't her destiny. Instead, she drifted into the arts scene. In the mid-80s, she fell in with a radical filmmaker named Jarman, became his muse and collaborator in a series of experimental films. This was where the Tilda Swinton legend truly began. In underground art house cinema, with Tilda often not so much acting as simply being, an enigmatic presence on screen. Her breakthrough came with Orlando, where she played a gender-bending nobleman who lives for centuries and transforms into a woman. If that sounds like a role tailor-made for her, well, it was. Orlando put Tilda on the map internationally and showcased her ability to personify the mystical and androgynous. Hollywood came calling, but she would only answer on her own terms. In the 2000s, she balanced offbeat indie projects with a few mainstream turns. She chilled children as the White Witch in The Chronicles of Narnia, and later won an Academy Award as a ruthless corporate lawyer in Michael Clayton. She could do the conventional prestige role, and do it brilliantly. but she always returned to quirkier fare like only lovers left alive, where she plays a languid vampire to perfection, and collaborations with visionaries like Wes Anderson and Bong Joon-ho. By the 2010s, she was known as the actress who could comfortably slip into any wild transformation, whether it was playing an 82-year-old man in Suspiria or a superpowered ancient one in Marvel's Doctor Strange. And somehow, it always made sense if Tilda was doing it. Meanwhile, her personal life only burnished the legend. She never moved to Hollywood. She raised her twins in the far north of Scotland, in an old family home by the sea, and she made headlines for her unorthodox approach to love. For years, she maintained a household with the father of her children, playwright John Byrne, who is 20 years her senior, and her younger partner, painter Sandro Kopp. It is a very civilized arrangement, Byrne insisted when curious minds couldn't quite wrap their heads around it. Tilda shrugged off the raised eyebrows. Everyone was happy, so why not? By her account, she and Byrne stayed best friends. The greatest of chums, she said, even after they stopped being romantic. That kind of bohemian, open-hearted setup only fueled the public perception of Swinton as living life by her own script, utterly unfazed by what anyone might think. Even in the art world, she pushed boundaries. In 1995, she debuted a performance art piece called The Maybe, spending her days sleeping in a glass display case like a fairy tale figure in suspended animation. She reprised it at New York's Museum of Modern Art in 2013 to surprised crowds. No announcement, no explanation. The museum simply revealed her like a human artwork. It was bizarre, brave, and completely on brand for Tilda. For her, it had deep personal meaning, a tribute to friends lost in the AIDS crisis, but she allowed audiences draw their own conclusions. By now you might be wondering, what is the method to this madness? How did all these odd pieces, the avant-garde films, the androgynous style, the polyamorous home, the living art, come together to make Tilda Swinton such a force of culture? Let's dig into what makes her tick, because the real secret lies beneath the surface. Quick note here. In a moment, we'll get into why Tilda bristles if you call her an actress, and how embracing her inner weirdo made her a star. Plus, later on, we'll break down how you can steal a bit of her style magic for yourself. So don't go anywhere. Well, yes, at first glance, Tilda's persona is defined by her look. And what a look that is. She has an alabaster complexion, green-gray, piercingly dreamy eyes, and cheekbones that could cut glass. With her hair often bleached to a white blonde and styled into all kinds of futuristic shapes, and her preference for stark, sculptural fashion, Tilda's appearance is strikingly individual. People often describe her as otherworldly or ethereal, so she blurs the line between masculine and feminine beautifully. One day she might wear a sharply tailored suit that gives dapper English gentleman vibes. Another day she's in a flowing avant-garde gown, as if an alien queen just landed on the red carpet. But this cultivated androgyny isn't just for show. It's an expression of who she is. I always felt I was queer. I was just looking for my queer circus. And I found it, she said of finding her tribe of art collaborators. Fittingly, she has literally played characters of every gender and species, from the gender-swapping Orlando to an angel Gabriel in Constantine to a witch, a vampire, and even an old man. Tilda loves inhabiting the in-between states, and it shows. Crucially, Tilda doesn't think of herself as a traditional actor at all. She's said so repeatedly over the years. She once corrected an interviewer, "You keep saying I am an actor. I am not an actor." Tilda never trained at drama school and never hungered for stardom. She more or less fell sideways into film via performance art. She still sees what she does as art experimentation and collaboration, not pretending to be someone else. I never set out to be a performer. I ended up in films because I'm a film fan, she explained, and noted that the late Derek Jarman cast her for her presence, not for method actor chops. Remember when we touched on something eerily similar when talking about Chloe Sevigny? One profile put it perfectly. Swinton has long been associated with the art world and views herself as a performer rather than a movie star. This mindset frees her from the usual actor ego trips. She doesn't do what she does for fame or awards. She famously claimed she'd never even watched the Oscars before winning one. And she certainly doesn't abide by Hollywood's expectations for how an actress should look or behave. In her own words, "I still don't want to be an actress. I don't know what it would take for me to feel like one." It's almost as if Tilda Swinton is a perpetual art project, and acting in films is just one medium she plays with. Because she operates outside the Hollywood norm, Tilda has no problem being labeled difficult or weird. In fact, she wears those badges with pride. She's pointed out that, especially for women, difficult means not easy. To what? To railroad? It means visible, not ignorable, not biddable, having to be dealt with. In other words, being difficult just means you're someone with a spine and a presence. Tilda absolutely lives that. She stands up for creative risks and for people who don't fit the mold. She'll defend so-called difficult artists if they're pursuing a true artistic vision. And she's drawn to difficult material as well. Challenging roles, unconventional stories. One great example is her frequent work with director Joanna Hock, playing complex, not immediately likable women in The Souvenir and The Eternal Daughter. Tilda makes no apology for gravitating to the strange. "Transgression speaks to me," she said. She has an almost adolescent curiosity about breaking rules and seeing what happens. This is perhaps why we might call Tilda Swinton a modern embodiment of the androgynous archetype, the kind of Apollonian, shape-shifting figure that appears throughout art and myth. Tilda is that cool androgynous energy that feels both ancient and futuristic. And let me tell you, the intersection between ancient and futuristic is where all the most fascinating things live. And her fellow artists certainly recognize how singular Tilda Swinton is. Directors often refer to her less as an actor for hire and more as a muse or a creative partner. And they don't do that very often, you know? She's been muse to fashion designers and to filmmakers across the globe, to just about any kind of actively creative personas. Her close friendship with the late Karl Lagerfeld and designer Haider Ackermann is well known. Her collaborators all know casting Tilda brings a kind of elevated strangeness that can't be faked. In one interview, dazzled by her presence at Cannes, a journalist wrote that Tilda cast a spell on a room full of press and noted her outstanding taste and quintessential weirdness fueled the film she was in. She's often regarded simply as no ordinary human being. That about sums it up. Tilda has made being not normal into her brand and her superpower. Let's talk for a moment about one of my, and many people's, favorite Tilda roles. Only Lovers Left Alive. This 2013 film by Jim Jarmusch is about two elegant, world-weary vampires in love. On paper, it's a niche art house flick. On screen, it's pure distilled cool. Tilda's character, Eve, is an ancient vampire who has seen it all. She lounges in silk robes and Tangier, speaks several languages, handles rare vintage guitars and old books like sacred objects, and sips blood from a crystal glass as if it's fine wine. Who else could make an ageless blood drinker so effortlessly chic and soulful?
The hair thing was really interesting. I wanted them to have wild hair. I wanted them to look partly animalistic and even behave like half animals and half very sophisticated humans. And so we were trying to make these wigs for them and this hair, and we're trying on different things, and we just weren't getting an interesting texture. And Tilda said, "Well, you keep saying animal, the animal thing is missing. Why are we just looking at humans? Let's start looking at animal fur." So we started looking at animals, and then Gerd said that he had in the past mixed some goat and yak fur into human hair to make it thicker, and Tilda was like, "Let's try that." So then he tried that, weaving in the end their wigs were made of a certain percentage of human hair mixed with goat and yak hair. Again, why? I just wanted them to look kind of wild, you know.
It was a real leap of the imagination to free ourselves from anything that felt tied to any one time. We were making a bouquet, so we wanted them to look like they had lived through all these times. So if you put too much of one flower in a bouquet, it tends to overwhelm. We needed to just do a smorgasbord of all these different references, but for them never to look fashionable. I mean, they are too snobbish to be fashionable, let's face it. Too snobbish to be snobs. Strip all the elements, every glove, every jacket from any contemporary or any remotely fashion reference. Although they had to feel like they could have been at any time. This feeling of trying to find this lowest common denominator was this thing that repeated. What could you have worn in the 15th century? What could you have worn in the 18th century? What could you have worn in the 60s? What could you have worn in the 80s? And what could you be wearing now? In fact, now was not really that important to us. But what could have lasted? What could, like John Hurt has, he's been wearing that waistcoat because he loves it for 500 years. Why not? We all wear things we love for 500 years. That feeling of things lasting, them not being tied to the times. It's easy to say, but it was very difficult to actually free ourselves from hanging on to, oh yeah, that looks so 50s. No, if it looks 50s, let's refine it again. Let's make it look like nothing. Let's make it look like a bit 50s, a bit 70s, a bit 1580s. And then we would start to land. When we could see that it was all smudgy and vague, then we started to land.
Tilda once said that to her, the vampires in that story represent outsider artists who are quietly creating on the margins of society, immortal in their influence, even if the mainstream doesn't see them. That sensibility was home to her, since she came from an underground art scene herself. Watching only lovers left alive, you almost feel Jarmusch just cast Tilda to play Tilda, an immortal bohemian philosopher with impeccable, timeless style. It's a role that encapsulates her persona, regal but punk, wise but never jaded, seductive in an offbeat, brainy way. Also a tiny fun fact. Around the same time, David Bowie, another legendary androgynous chameleon I have just recently covered, personally picked Swinton to co-star in one of his music videos. The Stars Are Out Tonight, as his wife. It was perfect casting. Their visual resemblance and vibe were so similar that fans pretty much freaked out. Bowie and Swinton recognized each other as kindred aliens among us. By now you might be wondering how you can channel a bit of Tilda Swinton's magic in your life. Short of sleeping in a museum, of course. So as promised, let's break down Tilda's beauty and style blueprint for some practical takeaways. First and foremost, Tilda teaches us to embrace what makes you different. In her case, her pale coloring, angular face, and tall, lanky frame didn't fit the standard Hollywood bombshell mold, not at all. So she made them her trademarks instead. She often forgoes visible makeup, so her almost translucent skin and bare eyebrows create a striking canvas. You may or may not want to bleach your brows like her, but you can take a page from her playbook by sometimes dialing back the makeup and letting your natural features, be they freckles, strong brows, silver hair, etc., shine in their own right. It's about confidence in what makes you you. Tilda exudes comfort in her own skin, which is possibly the most attractive quality of all. Throughout her career, Tilda's hair has been a key part of her look. She rocked everything from a fiery orange crop, which made every other woman at an awards show look like a frowsy fashion loser, one amused observer noted, to an ice blonde swoop that became her signature. The lesson here isn't to copy, but rather that hair can be a powerful form of self-expression. A cut that might seem too edgy by conventional standards could be exactly what you like, what sets you apart. Tilda's hair says she's not interested in blending in, and neither should you if you crave a standout style. Even a subtle change, like a bold new hair color or a sharp pixie cut, can make you feel daring and new and true to yourself. Tilda is legendary for her fashion too, often described as haute couture meets gender-fluid elegance. The takeaway here, don't feel confined by the standard in clothing. If you're a woman who's never tried a tailored suit, maybe give it a go. You just might discover an empowering new look. If you're more comfortable in flowing silhouettes regardless, wear them with pride. Tilda's wardrobe is all about clean lines, interesting structures, and sometimes a dash of whimsical drama. She's not one for overly fussy details. Instead, she goes for impact. If that sounds like you can emulate this by choosing one statement piece for an outfit and keeping the rest simple. For instance, a striking jacket in an unusual cut, or an artful piece of jewelry worn with an otherwise minimal ensemble. It's that contrast and confidence that create the Swinton effect. Embrace the unconventional. Perhaps the most practical lesson here is a psychological one. Give yourself permission to experiment. Tilda once said her guiding impulse is to constantly ask, I wonder what would happen if... Whether it's in style or life, adopting that curiosity can lead you to wonderful, unique places. Maybe it's a genre of music or film outside your usual taste, or wearing that lip color you secretly love but thought you couldn't pull off. Channel a bit of Tilda Swinton's fearless experimental spirit. You might be surprised at how much your sense of beauty expands. And if you've made it this far, here's your reward. Coming up next, I've got a little surprise Tilda tip coming up, and a special thank you gift created just for this video. Shall we? Now, let's reflect on what Tilda Swinton's story offers us beyond fashion or film. Tilda has this marvelous life philosophy that seeps into everything she does. In a recent piece she wrote for Vogue, she listed her rules for radical living, and among them were gems like make friends with chaos, defy unkindness, reach beyond the binary, keep breathing. It reads like poetry, but it's also quite practical. She's telling us to stay open to change, to be kind, but also brave, and to not let the world put us in a tidy box. Her entire career is a testament to those ideas. She made friends with chaos, chose unpredictable roles and lifestyles, and look how it paid off. She reached beyond binaries in art and gender, and it made her a singular figure. Before I say goodbye, a quick shout out. Huge thanks to our channel members. You helped me spend a week down the rabbit hole with icons like Tilda, and I love you for it. If you're not a member yet, consider joining. We've got members-only podcast episodes and more. And as a fun treat, I even designed us a special Tilda Swinton t-shirt, just for this video's launch. It's a little piece of her world that you can wear. At the end of the day, Tilda Swinton's beauty blueprint isn't about copying her look. Good luck with that. It's about finding the courage to be as unabashedly yourself as she is. She shows us that beauty can be strange, that style can be surreal, and that life itself can be a work of art if you approach it with imagination. As the lady herself would say, make friends with chaos, keep your chin up and head for the light. And with that, I'll leave you with one final image.
A way of pretending that I can keep otherness away. I cannot.